horrible. I look like a girl.
How could you?
Stupid.
How could you? I need to get my pop-outs going. Pop-outs.
All right.
An error occurred. Please try again later.
Error.
Error. Okay. We live, guys? We live? You guys hear? Can you hear us?
Yeah. We might be live.
It says we're live.
We might be live. We might be live. So I'll start the show right now. Welcome to Awesome Hardware, episode 206. You're watching Side B. If you missed Side A, check it out on Paul's channel, youtube.com/Paul's Hardware, or follow the link in my description below. If you're at twitch.tv/Awesome Hardware, just stay right where you are. Welcome back. This is a tech news show that we do every single Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. And that time gets later and later as we progress.
5:36.
Yeah, 5:36, 789.
Ball.
It's all the same. And we occasionally like to have an adult beverage or two on the show. So if you're around, drinking with us, cheers to all of you. Thank you for being here. Mm-hmm. There is occasional adult language on the show, so if you're sensitive to that sort of thing, then GTFO. But apart from that, we do sell things on our stores. My store is bitwit.tech, and I have the new heatsink logo.
Did I even talk about the stores?
I don't think you did.
I don't think I did.
And neither of us
skipped that.
Shame on both of us because we both forgot to talk about that. But we'll talk about it on my half. I've got the new heatsink logo that is a rebrand for the channel. It's plastered on a bunch of different things, shirts and hoodies and mugs and stuff.
Look, mugs.
Yes, absolutely. Everything's great.
Yeah.
I just got a shipment from John, our merch guy,
Oh, yeah?
of pretty much everything that you see here, and it's all really nice, super high quality.
Good.
Go ahead and check that out. Paul's store is paulshardware.net. He also has an assortment of high quality merchandise, including
I have my
hoodies, shirts,
my
mugs.
existing classic logo.
Classic.
Still
Classic.
great.
Still tried and true, going strong.
Still available.
Never dies. And yeah, if you happen to pick up something from both of us,
Sales right now, you guys. Sales
on both of our sites.
This dark gray hooded zipper, zip up hoodie.
Did you say zooted hipper?
Hooded zipper.
Did you say
Hooded
a zooted?
zip up hoodie. Everything's fine. Shut up.
A zip up.
Everything's fine.
A hip up zooty.
This is a really nice hoodie, and it's on sale right now. If you guys are interested, you get $10 off. So buy those up. Great for the winter.
Only slightly worse than
Also,
my hoodies.
the lightweight one also available for sale. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yes, we will yell Johnson at you at the end of the show. Also, feel free to add donations in Super Chat, in YouTube chat. We will be reading off comments attached to those donations during the after party, which will be shortly after my half. But we can dive into tech news. My half is primarily tech news, followed by a special edition of First Timers Pimp My PC, where we take a look at first-time builders and the PCs that they've assembled, and we'll critique them rigorously, efficiently.
Never forget your first time.
Erotically. So let's move on to tech news. Our first article is from 9to5google.com, and it's about the Pixel 4. The Pixel 4 was announced and unveiled today by Google themselves officially with the most boring keynote I've ever seen. It was extremely boring and uninteresting.
Really?
Like my grandma could have done a better job.
You watched it?
I did. I woke up and it was already streaming. I woke up and I was like, oh shit. I was like half asleep when I started it, and it literally put me back to sleep. I fell asleep again.
Who
trying
was
to
the
watch
presenter?
it.
Because
I don't know.
I didn't.
No one interesting. No one memorable.
Watch it.
It was terrible.
I did see somebody tweet about, like, you guys better talk about how boring the presenter is. But in my experience, sometimes when I've had really bad presenters on stage, it's because they're actually like engineers, or like presentation isn't their first thing. I have no idea. I'm just speculating. So I'm wondering who the actual presenter was.
It could have also been because of the fact that the Pixel 4 has been the most leaked product, or most leaked smartphone almost in history, where by the time they were actually giving us facts about it on the official unveil, we kind of already knew everything there was to know about it. There weren't too many surprises about the Pixel 4 specifically, but I still want to talk about this because I have been in the market for a new phone for quite some time now. For the last few weeks, I've been using my old Samsung Galaxy S6 from 4 or 5 years ago. because my Pixel 2 kicked the bucket. I dropped it, the screen cracked, I have no video signal now, and
So now you're using this
and
one.
so I've been using my old phone, which is also cracked, but at least the screen works. And it's terrible. I popped my SIM card in here, and it somehow works. I obviously don't have data, but I can make calls and receive text messages. It's very limited. I feel like a disabled, like it's like a disabled phone. You know, like it should have a handicap placard everywhere I go. Like, oh, I have a disabled phone. It's fine. I should be able to cut the front of the line or something. But it's just a really basic phone experience. I've been looking to get a nice new flagship phone because, you know, I work with internet stuff and I do internet things from time to time. I don't know which route I should go. After seeing the keynote for the Pixel 4, I was pretty underwhelmed, honestly. Obviously, it still has a lot of cool features, like, you know, it's got vanilla Android. You're getting real-time updates from Google directly, so you're getting all the latest and greatest software updates in terms of Android software and stuff like that.
And I will say, as an original Pixel user,
yeah,
as someone who is still very happy with my original Pixel phone,
Pixel 1.0,
original Pixel XL here, I still get all the updates. Like I
Right.
get the updates when they launch and everything. So I mean, that's a nice feature. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the third parties who design the phones, you know, if your phone's more than 2 years old, there's a decent chance they'll just stop doing updates for it.
Right. That's the case for most phones, even the flagships. But what I'm having a hard time wrestling with is that feature alone worth the premium? Because the other thing I don't like about the new Pixel 4 is that it looks a bit dated. Like it has some fairly large bezels on the top and bottom, which a flagship 2019 phone does not. This phone seems like it's 8 months too late. The Samsung Galaxy S10 launched 7 or 8 months ago, I believe, and the Pixel 4 doesn't really deliver on a lot of fronts that I was expecting it to. Obviously, the camera is still great, but people are saying that the iPhone 11 has been catching up to it. If we take a look at, you can actually show this, Paul. These are photo comparisons, camera comparisons.
Oh wait.
Between
you want the video or the camera comparison?
Yeah, the camera comparison, so you can show people. And
it's from The Verge, by the way.
It's from The Verge. You know, it does everything on the left, I think, is Pixel 4, and then everything on the right is iPhone 11 Pro.
That's crazy. It's like a completely different picture.
So, Paul, which one do you think looks better? We're doing the Paul test. This new segment is called the Paul test.
I don't think there's anything that significantly distinguishes them to say one is better than
Really?
the other.
Which one would you which one would you rather post on Instagram?
I don't know. It's like this one the greens look a little bit more vivid, but they're also a little bit more yellow. This one the greens are more green, but they're not popping as much. Sky looks more blue there. It's a little slightly on the grayish side there. I don't know. I'm not good at this. It's such a
Aren't you
challenge.
supposed to be like, all right, let's go to the next picture
Yeah,
then.
let's
Let's
do
go to
this
the
one.
next picture.
Okay.
Before and after.
All right.
Now bear in mind,
Now-
don't just look at the most obvious thing. Also look at the light source, where the light's coming from, and how balanced the lighting looks overall.
Yeah, I mean here it's definitely a lot darker, and you're losing a lot of detail in the shadows. Here, like there's just a ton of, you know, even down underneath the cart and everything. But this one almost looks like it's over,
Almost like blown out a little bit.
yeah, like it's almost overexposed.
More natural.
A little bit in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
Here, like this, if I was taking a picture and I wanted to do post production on it, I would want this.
Yes, right.
Because you got nice dark areas that
Exactly.
you could bring out with the
Which is the Pixel 4, and that's and the bright one is the iPhone 11.
bright one is the iPhone 11. Okay.
Right. If you look at the windows, look how you can see so much detail coming through those roof windows, and then you slide over, look how blown out they
How
are.
it's blown out
So
versus
the exposure balance on the Pixel 4 is far superior in this photo, at least. But it really just, I guess, it kind of depends on what you're going for.
Yeah.
The iPhone 11 seemed to reign slightly supreme here because you can definitely see a bit more detail in that pillow on the iPhone 11. They both look good,
Yeah.
but I feel like the iPhone 11 does
The texture of the fabric right down in this area here.
yes, on the denim beanbag
looks
thing.
a bit crisper.
Yeah.
But I also like the color balance more on the Pixel.
Looks more natural.
The wood looks more natural. Here it looks a little bit more washed out.
Yeah.
A little bit greenish in the actual floorboards up there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's true. And then
Okay.
this is a skin tone. So another one with skin tone. I think the iPhone 11 looks way too warm here and digitized in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think the Pixel 4 just looks way more natural and lifelike. Like you can just reach out and touch him here, versus there being too much processing or something going on with the iPhone 11, and just way too warm. A lot more detail in the beard too from the Pixel 4.
I wonder how he got
you look
that
at the hair.
scar on his left temple.
You know, if we had a even better camera, we might be able to tell.
You might be able to figure out the backstory to that?
Right.
Okay.
You can see the actual fingerprint. And then another human hair test.
Okay.
NVIDIA HairWorks
Oh, yeah.
test here. So I think the detail's pretty on par here with both cameras, but I think the color balance again with the Pixel's far better.
Okay.
Just looks super warm. So at any rate, but there is more to a phone than just its camera, right? And so I've been struggling with this problem. What phone should I actually get? And I'm really torn right now between, and if Sel, our good friend and moderator in chat, could potentially post that straw poll link, if he hasn't already, he may already have. In that case, thank you very much, Sel. Could post that into both chats. Please help me, Internet. What phone should I get? Because I want a flagship phone. I want a phone that's going to last me a couple of years. And I'm really torn right now between the Pixel 4 or 4 XL, the Samsung Galaxy S10 or S10 Plus. There is the option of the iPhone 11 or 11 Pro, but I'm definitely not leaning towards that because it's a completely different operating system that I'm not familiar with, and
Scary.
I'm more or less.
iPhones are scary.
They are scary. They scare me. I feel nervous just thinking about
I feel
having
like there's
one.
some like
Evil force.
There's a hidden cartridge in there that like injects you with something that makes you like it's
Apple juice.
Probably apple juice, or maybe that's what they call it. Gives you the apple juice. And it just gives you a dopamine rush, like every time you use the iPhone, to where you get like, oh my gosh, iPhones
Yes.
are the best. Apple.
That guy's on the apple juice. How have they not used that as a marketing ploy yet?
Apple juice?
I mean, that's a shoo-in. Call something the apple juice. Like their chargers.
like a
They
charger,
should sell
yeah, like
proprietary bullshit chargers that they charge 5 times the amount of anything that does the same shit
They ever
on,
did the
on
air,
Amazon.
What was they were supposed
But
to
call
do
it the apple juicer.
The air charge. There was some Apple thing that they talked about in events, like over the air charging or something, and they never launched it.
Yeah, probably because no one would buy it. It was stupid.
Sucked, I guess. I don't know.
So I don't know. What do you think, Paul? What do you think I should buy?
What should you buy?
Did you see anything about the Pixel 4 today? You had to.
I mean, I caught a
guess you were busy.
little bit of the stuff going on the Twitters earlier this morning.
Yeah.
But then I was working on other stuff, so I didn't catch too much beyond that.
Right.
No, I mean
Spec-wise.
it doesn't have a wide doesn't have a widescreen lens, a wide angle lens.
Correct.
That's what everyone was really mad about. That's the thing.
Right.
It's like,
Which
if,
seems
if
to
I
make-
learned one thing about the Pixel 4, this
MKBHD
morning,
was ranting about that a bit.
it was that wide angle lens. Leaving that out was just an egregious error on their
Right.
part, apparently.
in place of a telephoto lens, which I feel like isn't as commonly used on a smartphone. Like most people are taking selfies and shit.
Maybe you want to zoom in on your face.
Which I guess is why
Selfie.
the Pixel phones have usually been a really popular choice for content creators. So I feel like a content creator would find more use with a telephoto lens than a widescreen lens, or I'm sorry, a wide lens. But you still want to be able to have, like, be able to capture a lot of, scenery, from a short distance. And so I feel like for a smartphone, like a wide angle lens, especially on a flagship phone, is pretty standard. So I thought that was an interesting choice as well. I'd have to like actually use it myself to see how if it's a real problem. But I'm really torn right now between the Pixel 4 and the Samsung Galaxy S10. The Galaxy S10 is a beautiful looking phone. I mean, it's got like zero bezel. It doesn't have a notch. It's got, the little sort of punch out or whatever in the top right corner. And it's I like the fact that it's got a micro SD card slot.
Does it have a headphone jack too?
I don't think so. I don't think it does.
I thought Austin said it did.
Maybe it does. I don't know. I don't believe it does because I haven't personally read about that.
Galaxy S10 headphone jack.
But
people say yes, it does.
Oh yeah?
Yes, it does.
Oh, it does. Even better.
That's the thing that was making me consider it.
Yeah.
As an update to my Pixel XL.
Yeah, I mean,
but then
just those two things alone.
I keep doing things that make me extending the life of my Pixel XL. I broke the screen. I replaced the screen. Hey, new life. People keep asking me about the battery. Battery and this still just does fine.
Wow.
It's perfectly
that
fine
amazes
for me.
That amazes me.
Which, yeah, me too. I'm very happy about that.
You got like
a
golden
I haven't
stamp.
had any firmware updates or whatever that have suddenly killed the battery life or anything like that. And then most recently, I was having issues charging it, like it wouldn't do fast charge anymore and stuff through the plug, and even like all I was able to get was the trickle charging.
Yeah.
When plugging it in, and I wasn't able to do data transfers off of it anymore with the
Right.
plug-in via USB.
Right.
But I just cleaned out the USB-C plug on the bottom, and that fixed that. So
it still kicks. It's still kicking.
Still doing fine for me, and the camera's still awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No. But definitely other competitors have caught up to the Pixel's camera quality. I think the iPhone 11 definitely gives it a run for its money. But from the images that we saw in that Verge article, I do think I prefer the Pixel camera. But let's see what you guys thought.
Okay.
What phone should I get for my next phone to replace my Samsung Galaxy S6? It should be the Galaxy S10.
Man, that's close.
With a very close Pixel 4 second.
And 3 votes.
Wow. It's more or less a draw there at that point. But I think me leaning towards the Galaxy S10 already sort of solidifies that point. So I may very well buy an unlocked version of the phone tonight after the show.
Well,
maybe I'll do a video on it or something.
Well, that would be nice.
Thank you, chat. Let's move on. Oh, tin can on a string. That's
getting close.
Plausible.
Definitely much preferred to the iPhone.
To the
11.
iPhone 11.
So that's
can see why.
something.
Next up, we have an article from Tom's Hardware about Intel confirming that 10nm desktop CPUs are still in fact happening. This actually comes from a rumor that spawned yesterday from German site Hardware Lux that Intel had canceled plans for 10nm and would skip it entirely, releasing 7nm in 2022, the year 2020-2. Intel officially denied it. They said, we continue to make great progress on 10nm, and our current roadmap of 10nm products includes desktop. I think that's really funny because their current roadmap of 10nm has always changed.
Yeah, it's
every few months.
Not necessarily the most reliable
their
roadmap.
current roadmap means jack shit. But they have confirmed that 10nm is still in the works and that they are going to be releasing it for desktop CPUs at some point in time. This was a suspicious rumor to begin with because last year at some event, Chief Architect Raja Kaduri, formerly of AMD, said that Intel did have plans to release a high-end desktop CPU on 10nm. So unless their plans were completely scrapped, which is highly unlikely, 10nm still seems to be in the works. The article speculates that 10nm will arrive in late 2021. That will be roughly 2 years from now still. Wow. The fact that 10nm has been promised...
That's what Tom is speculating?
Yes. Yes. That seems like a much longer time than other articles that we've read who are expecting it to be as early as next year. So we'll just have to wait and see. And it's one of those things where it's like, no, it's got to be next year. But then when you look at the history of how long and how far that they've delayed this shit, you kind of would be a sucker to be caught off guard and surprised by them delaying it to 2022.
AMD's going to have
shitty.
Zen 3 out by that point.
Yeah. and that'll be 7 nanometer plus plus.
AMD's going to be able to move to a new platform and a new socket because they only promised compatibility through 2020 with their current socket.
Yeah.
And they've maintained that. And I don't know about you guys, but personally, I am totally okay with AMD having a new socket and a new platform for their next generation once they move on past Ryzen 3000 series. I think they've given enough longevity to the current platform.
Absolutely.
And that's going to give them some advantages
Yes.
with redesigning that and for adding more features and everything. I just, like, I don't know. I'm so confused about what Intel has been doing for, like, go back 4 or 5 years.
They've been sitting on their hands.
But even since then, even in the like, how long has it been since first gen Ryzen? First gen Ryzen should have been a big kick in the pants for them. And then when second and gen and third gen did well as well. I don't know. I
maybe it just shows how cocky Intel has been. Like, even
what have
after
they been working on? What are they investing their resources in research and development of their products? Is 10 nanometer really that difficult? And which also seems weird because AMD's cranking out processors on 7 nanometer and so
they're able to do it.
I'm baffled.
Part of me thinks it's a twofold issue where Intel is so huge and massive, and they have such a long roadmap that extends many years beyond current time, that they've already, like, by the time Zen 1 even released, they probably already had a roadmap and people working on generations 3 or 4 times removed from the current one. And I feel like Intel also being such a large ship, it makes it a lot harder for them to steer in a new direction. So if they have this really established long-term plan and they need to change it at a moment's notice, like, oh, our competitor is actually being competitive now, it takes them fucking forever to actually divert their traction and to go in a different direction. So I feel like they have the capacity and they have the capability. They obviously have the resources. They're much bigger than AMD as a company, but that also kind of hurts them in a way because it takes them so long to create a new path where they have to redo R&D. They have to go up the chain of command, tenfold. It's a bigger ship to steer. So I feel like they know what they have to do. They're too big for their own good to react so accordingly and in a timely manner when this is really a time sensitive issue. Like, your competitor has stepped up to the plate and they're saying it, check, it's your move. But Intel hasn't foreseen that in their 10-year roadmap. So they're reacting very slowly to it because of their size. So I don't know. I feel like time will tell to see when exactly 10 nanometer drops. I don't think in the last couple years Intel has really thought that they needed to use 10 nanometer. I feel like it's more of like a secret weapon at this point where they can finally drop it on their competitors, but they haven't really had a need to use their 10 nanometer card until very recently, and they're just not prepared to use it at this point. There's also the issue of, even though 10 nanometer will potentially vastly improve IPC on already what's like the fastest CPU on the market, if you're talking about the 9900K, there's also the issue of yield and, like, will Intel be able to actually meet demand of their new process on 10 nanometer? If they're able to do 10 nanometer, but the wafer and the silicon quality is so sporadic, and they're unable to actually get the higher quality chips that they need to make the actual product, we could be looking at shortages, which would then drive the prices up of these CPUs. That would be great, no less, but if they're going to be extremely expensive, then that definitely diminishes their value. So Intel's in a weird spot. I don't know no one really knows what's going on with 10 nanometer right now. But I also kind of think that this is I feel like there was a trick here. Like, this rumor sort of came out of nowhere, and it seems so unsubstantiated. that 10 nanometer was canceled and that they would just skip to 7 nanometer in 2022. I feel like it was almost a manipulative tactic. This is just a stupid tinfoil hat conspiracy theory that someone manipulated. They used a rumor to manipulate Intel into admitting that their 10 nanometer process was on track and was going to release soon.
At this point,
They've been really quiet about it until now.
I don't put anything past any company, given how much has gone on with disinformation in the public and everything, and like manipulating public perception, intentionally putting out like a false story to give people an impression and then changing it, so like anchoring way past what you want so that when you capitulate and bring it back to somewhere in the middle, it's actually what you want. Anchoring, very common tactic right now, which is frustrating because the general public has to deal with so much misinformation, and you have to just be so cynical and skeptical of any news that comes across, and you have to cross check things to make sure it's a legitimate story and stuff like that. Anyway, but everyone should do that.
Yeah.
Be cynical.
It should. You have to be so cynical.
Question things.
But you should.
Question us. We're probably lying to you right now.
We're all in it for the money.
We're just trying to get your money.
Just trying to rake in all the dough that Awesome Hardware brings in every week. Hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's why I make the big bucks.
Awesome Hardware cash.
Moving on to our next article from overclock3d.net. AMD's Zen 3 architecture is reportedly expected to deliver an 8% or higher IPC boost. This is not a rumor. This actually comes from AMD rep Martin Hilgman and from an official AMD presentation at the HPC AI Advisory Council's 2019 UK conference. That's a mouthful. The new report claims that Zen 3 will deliver an 8+% IPC performance boost over Zen 2, alongside a 100 to 200 megahertz boost in clock speeds. That would give us a combined total of roughly 10% boost in single-threaded performance. That means gaming in a lot of senses. 10% is not too shabby, especially on the same process node. We're still talking about 7 nanometer here, going from Zen 2 to Zen 3. It's still the 7 nanometer,
That's
but
8% compared to Zen 2?
Yes.
Okay.
But we're talking 7 nanometer plus. So it's actually not too bad. We are seeing fairly good gains there. The Zen 3 architecture also changes the core topology, apparently, of AMD's 8-core Zen CPU dies. So there would be no more quad-core CCXs in each 8-core CPU die. Rather, Zen 3 would more likely move to a more unified core design that keeps all 8 cores within a single group on each die. And that will basically combine each chip's, basically allow each chip to split L3 cache so that it can be in a singular unit, granting each core direct access to a larger bank of L3 cache. This would decrease latency some, so that could potentially be how they're getting their IPC gains, but it remains to be seen exactly how that would work. And this would also be primarily applicative to single 8-core Zen CPU dies.
Applicable?
Applicable. Yes, it would mostly affect like an 8-core CPU more than it would like a 16-core, for example. So it's not going to be as robust as, like, Zen 3 won't be as big of a change that we saw from Zen 1 to Zen 2, because it's still on 7 nanometer. It's just an additional plus onto the architecture.
So it'd be more like the change from Zen to Zen Plus?
Yes, exactly. But it would still address a lot of the concerns that are existing around the current architecture. So
I agree, busted Buddha. Zen 3 should be called Zen 2 Plus.
Yeah, I mean, more or less.
Stick with that.
That's what the performance gains will reflect. Is that it'll be more of like a lateral move. It won't be.
They're still calling it Zen 3.
They are. Yeah, Zen 2 Plus would be more accurate. It's like a refresh, architecture refresh.
Must be weird to be in a position in a company where you're making marketing choices for like what to name things. And you're like, we can name it this, and it would make sense, and people would understand it.
But no.
Or we could name it this,
No
and it
one
would confuse people, but we'd probably make more money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously,
Right.
you make a business decision with that, and you go with option 2. But yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
everyone's got to eat. Our next article is from WCCF Tech. This is about the GTX 1660 Super. Add and board partner cards have leaked out. They've either been listed by board partners or this information's been leaked out by videocards.com. Apparently, the GTX 1660 Super will be using a TU 116 300 die, which is the same as the existing GTX 1660, but will potentially see GDDR6 memory, which will improve performance quite a bit. There's a couple different add and board partner variants that they had here in this article, including EVGA offerings like the SC Ultra Black and the SC Ultra, which externally looks very identical to their existing
Radical
cards.
departure from EVGA's existing card lineup.
Nope, exactly the same. Nothing new here, just a new GPU with the exact same cooler that we've seen with their other SC Ultra cards, like on their GTX 1660. It's a nice cooler, though. I've worked with it briefly before. Seems to be pretty adequate. And then there's also the Max Sun, which is probably not a US brand. I don't know. I've never heard of this brand or worked with one of their cards, but
Sounds like a tanning salon.
yeah, Max Sun is probably more of like an Eastern region manufacturer that doesn't really sell to the US, but they have a card too. Dual fan design.
Oh, look,
Looks like
it has
some
materia in it.
materia.
Yes.
Okay, so there's some materia there, according to Paul, and backplate.
It says Terminator.
Terminator, with even almost like the same actual Terminator font. Kind of funny.
It's true.
Wonder if that's copywritten.
Huh.
And apart from that, there's also the PNY Mini. If you scroll down below, there's like a really small, kind of cute GTX 1660 Super.
That's very tiny.
Very tiny, single fan. Looks like a really just kind of a miniature option if you're looking for an SFF build or something like that.
Okay.
So the GTX 1660 Super seems to be a real thing that will be coming out sometime soon.
About 250?
Yeah, roughly 250.
Okay.
Roughly 250, which puts it nicely between obviously the 1660 and the 1660 Ti, and also, I guess, where would that be in terms of AMD's stack? Less than an RX 580. No, RX 580 is roughly 200, right?
I haven't looked at pricing on the RX 580 or 590 in a while. I have a feeling that has shifted when it comes to real world pricing.
Yeah.
What's the 5700 starts at 300, right?
Yeah, so RX 580 is like 180, 190. And then, what was the one you?
RX 590.
Oh, yeah. RX 590 is probably like 200.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get one for 200 in 8 gig model. So, it's probably going to be faster than that. Might be able to do some 1440p gaming here and there.
How much does a 1660 Ti cost?
I feel like that's roughly to 670.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, I guess
270.
270.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's one there for 225
that might be.
from Superior Fashion Mall LLC. Oh, it is the.
Is it used?
I don't
No,
know.
it's just a very basic one. So you can find them cheaper, but too many low-end cards.
Again, it's just confusing to me that Nvidia determines like, all right, we've got that $270 price point taken care of with our 1660 Ti.
Let's lower it by
competitively
$20.
priced. But hey, for those gamers out there looking to spend $250 and no more, they're in a tough spot right now. Choosing between the 1660
really
Ti
not.
and the 1660, or choosing between a 5700 and an RX 590.
Nah.
There's a decent gap between the 5700 and the RX 590. Make no mistake there. Nice to claw your way up to a 5700 because it's a good card.
Yeah.
Very, very good card for the price. You get a lot of performance for that money.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess if you only have 250 to spend, then you can't spend 300.
Can't squeeze any more.
Yeah, it seems very close to their other parts and very confusing
The
to
tiers
add.
are getting tighter together.
There's 3 different 1660s now with different specs.
Mm-hmm. It's all getting more and more watered down, and
I'm sure it'll work out for them, and they'll make
the lines are starting to
massive profits or something.
They probably will. Let's move on to our next article from Ars Technica. This is about the whole Blizzard debacle.
Oh yeah.
This just to recap. So the headline is Blizzard calls off a public event to promote their Switch Overwatch launch in New York City. This is hot on the heels of Blizzard cracking down on pro Hearthstone player Wei Chung after he voiced support for the ongoing Hong Kong protests. Blizzard denied him his tournament winnings initially and banned him from tournaments for a year, which is insane. And the internet went ballistic, understandably so. Kind of denies like free speech in a lot of ways. Since then, Blizzard has given him back his winnings and reduced his ban to 6 months, but this has largely been due to the backlash that they've received, not so much the kindness out of their hearts.
They wouldn't have done that if people weren't making a stink.
If no one gave a shit. So the internet obviously has been outraged ever since then, and and it's still going strong. I mean, there's the whole hashtag boycott Blizzard going around. There's a group called the Gamers for Freedom that's organizing a protest targeting BlizzCon, which is Blizzard's annual event, which attracted 40,000 people last year, and is happening this year in less than a month. Actually, it's only 2 weeks away.
Beginning of November?
November 1st is when BlizzCon 2019 happens, and it'll be really interesting to see how things play out. It's not unlike Blizzard to call off an event this large last minute. I remember in 2012, or the article says in 2012 that they canceled BlizzCon that year a couple months in advance.
That was far in advance, though.
Yeah,
and that was because of their launch cycle and how
they had a bunch of shit going on.
Yeah, and how much of an impact BlizzCon has on just all of the people who work for Blizzard, because they typically have other jobs and then they also contribute to BlizzCon as well.
Right.
I don't see them canceling BlizzCon.
I don't either.
I'm absolutely going to be...
They've already invested.
Curious to see what goes on at BlizzCon, because
there's going to be some drama.
There's a reasonable expectation that people are
going to be some drama.
Be causing a stink there.
I guarantee you there's going to be protesters out in front of fucking BlizzCon, and hopefully it doesn't get too messy and, everyone's safe and stuff. But you never know with this shit. The internet's heated. The internet's heated right now. And the public has also been claiming that Blizzard, this whole debacle stems from Blizzard really trying to support China's political interests just so that they can have access to their vast gaming market. China is...
There's a lot of people in China.
The largest country in the world.
1.3 million people.
Billion. Did you say million?
Sorry, 1.3 billion.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's the biggest country in the world, and it would make sense for a massive game developer like Blizzard Activision, to want to tap into that market and have good relations with their biggest potential customer base, right? So being able to promote or support or advocate political interests in said country is potentially a good way to do that. And obviously that's backfired on them tremendously with all these boycotts and just internet warfare moments and protests that we likely haven't seen the end of. So it seems like Blizzard is, could they have not seen this coming? Could they have not seen this coming by stripping this guy's tournament winnings and banning him? Didn't someone there think the repercussions of this will be so heinous, we'll end up regretting everything that we're doing right now? It would be
if you want to go back to Blizzard as a company has changed a lot in the past, especially in the past 5 years or so. They've I don't know when Activision bought them and they became Activision Blizzard, but a lot of the old people who worked there and founded the company and started it have moved on to other things. So I think it's frustrating because like if you look at a game like Overwatch and if you follow the backstory of Overwatch and the characters in Overwatch and what they do and what they're fighting for and because that's how you make a good game. You get the audience invested in the characters and what they're doing. And the story of Overwatch, if you compare it to what's going on, especially between China and Hong Kong right now, is like how could you how could you support China in this instance if you are based in the moral like if your ethics come from Overwatch. I mean, not that's what happens, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's frustrating because people have to make difficult decisions about whether or not to continue to play a game or support
Yeah.
a company now if
Right.
they're paying attention to the larger picture of what that company is doing
Yeah.
on the global global scale. So
Right.
anyway, there's lots more that could be said about this, but
Yeah. But let's move on.
Free Hong Kong.
Free Hong Kong. We can move on to our next article here, which is from Ars Technica once again. This is our last news story for today before we dive into Pit My PC, and that is about the meat industry. Oddly enough, fake meat or faux meat fans have been having growing concerns over big meat companies that are cutting into the plant-based market. So there's been a huge trend, a huge uplift recently in plant-based foods, even in the more mainstream, like the most mainstream areas, like fast food, for example. Burger King has their new Impossible Whopper, which is completely plant-based. Carl's Jr. has a Beyond version of their famous star, and the list really just goes on. I mean, KFC, we're talking about all these huge names in the meat industry are switching to plant-based. And there have been so many startup companies, small companies that are doing plant-based shit as well for health, environmental benefits, animal rights, all this shit. And big meat corporations are basically cashing in on this trend. And these are huge, agriculturally impactful companies like Tyson, Purdue, Hormel, Smithfield, and Nestle, who are all trying to cash in on this trend of switching to plant-based meats. And this is raising concerns among the non-meat eating community because unlike small startups who are doing the same thing for a multitude of reasons, like I mentioned, a lot of these big meat companies are only interested in one thing, which is profit. So just because they're releasing plant-based products doesn't mean that they care about the environment or they care about animal rights or they care about physical health of the public. They really just care about business. It's the bottom line. So there's been an increasing concern among the faux meat fan community that a lot of these big hunkin' meat companies aren't really helping the problem. They might actually be worsening it. This also could potentially lead to smaller startups being put out of business. I think we saw the same thing happen. I think the article says that there was like a huge issue with like an oil company. Like, I don't know, there were some smaller startup companies for that, and like a large one took over. I don't fucking know. At any rate, buying plant-based foods from these big companies will still support the meat industry, I guess, is the point that they're trying to make, and all the negative effects it has on the environment, public health, and ethical treatment of animals would still be prevailing, even if you are buying plant-based foods from these companies. So it's kind of interesting. I feel like it's a double-edged sword. In one way, if you're trying to get the world to eat less meat, for whatever reason, whether you give a shit about the animals or not, whether you care about personal health or not, or the environment, one of those reasons will apply somewhere for a lot of people. It's a double-edged sword because you could potentially be getting more people on board with plant-based foods, but at the same time, if you're ending up supporting the big meat companies as a result of that anyway, then it seems counterintuitive, and you might actually be worsening those problems. So it's quite a conundrum that a lot of people are currently navigating, trying to figure out how to actually navigate. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that article.
I thought you were gonna sum it up with like the answer. You're gonna be like, "Here's the answer, though."
Well, okay, I actually was going to sum it up with an answer, and the
okay.
answer was that this article specifically has made me even more hungry than I already am, and that we should eat food afterwards, shortly after this stream.
It's reasonable, I suppose.
Yep. But apart from that, that does summarize our tech news for today, and we can then move into Pimp My PC. Again, this is the first timers edition, so everybody that we're going to take a look at today. That's not. It's Price Check with the very derpy picture of Steve, looking extra derpy.
I love that. All right, where's Pimp My PC? On the phone with Steve.
Hello, my name is Steve. I run the Gamers Nexus YouTube channel. Steve, you look a little bit a bit more tan.
There, Steve, what are you...
a bit more tan than usual. Have you been getting too much sun? Yeah, you know, I occasionally benchmark myself in the sunlight to see how tan I was before and after going to the beach.
All right, I found Pimp My PC.
All right, thank God. I couldn't stall much longer.
Yeah, that was good.
All right, so again, these are first timers. Everyone you're seeing here, all the builds are first time builders. This is their very first PC that they ever built. So we'll go slightly easy on them today. Starting with Kiruse. Built this last year right after my birthday. Ryzen 1600X, Zotac GTX 1660, 6GB mini, 3200 speed, 16 gigs of Trident Z memory, and Prime 350 Plus with a CryoRig H7 and the NZXT case. All right, let's see here. Cable management. The cable management could be much improved. Obviously, you don't have a power supply shroud, which would help tremendously here.
Yeah.
But
you do have a motherboard tray, though, so there's
you could route some of those cables behind more tightly.
Decent amount of tuckage that could be going on here.
Yeah.
With the cables, 24 pin could be routed through those slots. Right now, it's just kind of out and about lazily.
Definitely.
I mean, that said, it's a pretty clean looking build. Like, spend 10, 15 minutes cleaning up your cables here.
It'll look super clean.
And you got a nice clean looking build there. So especially for a first timer.
Yeah.
I think you did a good job here. Good choice of components. It's a nice, modest build. You didn't go insanely over the top or anything. Wait, does he have an SSD listed?
Doesn't say.
Yeah, get an SSD though. That's going to be your upgrade. I don't think you have one here. I don't see one plugged in from what I can tell.
You need an SSD, man.
SSD upgrade will be a huge improvement for you. So
install Windows on it.
15 minutes on some cable management, upgrade to an SSD. Nice build though. Good choices.
Yar.
Thank you.
Next up we have Jose. His first build in 2016. Nothing fancy, but he's proud of it. CM half 912, great case. Core i5 6600K, a CM Cooler Master Hyper 212, Asus Z170A, Asus Dual GTX 1060 OC 6GB model. Okay, the first thing I'll say about this system is that you might need a new case upgrade.
Man, the 912, that's old school, man.
That's very old school.
It's a good case.
Tried and true option for its time.
Functionally,
It's
a good
mesh
case.
at the front, yes.
Big old 200mm fans.
But it's just, doesn't have that painted interior.
It did have the clear heels 200mm fans though, so
yeah.
that was the downfall of the 912.
Right. I would say consider upgrading, because your CPU and your, I would say your CPU is totally great. 6600K is no slouch for gaming. I think you could use an upgrade for your GPU.
Why did he specifically bother to write CM Hyper 212 push-pull when it's clearly not an...
Only push.
Right?
Yeah, it's only pushing.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I just interested that he like pointed out it's push-pull when it's
maybe this is an outdated picture.
Oh yeah, it
just didn't
could
give
be
us
older pictures.
a new picture.
So
perhaps
maybe
it's push-pull now. At any rate, I think if this is primarily a gaming system, you want to upgrade your GPU first and foremost. I think your platform is still fine as a whole.
600K is good.
Yeah, 6600K is great. Upgrade that GPU, and I think if you wanted a more modern look, then upgrade the case as well.
Yeah, case is what's going to take you from it looking like, you know, pretty outdated.
29,
It's the
29,
painted,
2009.
non-painted interior.
Yeah, it looks like a 2008 case
Yep,
system.
that's what it boils down to.
Do those things and you'll be right as rain. Next up we have Zachi?
Thatchy-boo.
Zachi, Core i7 4790 and an RX 480 with an MSI H81M motherboard, 16 gigs of RAM, Corsair Spec 01 case. Okay, so I think, again, sort of like the last guy, you have a really good CPU for gaming, but your GPU is holding you back. I would upgrade that GPU ASAP.
Yeah.
If you want my personal advice for pimpage, I'd remove the sticker on your power supply. I think your cables are fine. Don't even worry. I mean, obviously, like the end goal would be to have like some nice sleep cables, but just worry about your GPU for now.
The cable management could be tidied a bit.
A little bit, yeah.
It's not horrible by any stretch, but
Right.
could be tidied. Just cinch some stuff down, get some twist ties.
Does
Maybe
he have
maybe
like
a bit of dusting in there.
Does he
I
have a
can see
micro ATX motherboard in that ATX case?
I think you might be right about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's not filling stuff out either.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't the worst yet. MSI H81ME34. So we have a quad-core hyper-threaded processor, but not unlocked for overclocking via the processor or the motherboard. Interesting that it's got water cooling though.
Yeah. Not necessary. I mean, it's only a 120 though, so
yeah,
it's about as good as a mid-range air cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as pimpage, I would say, well, functionally too, take care of your functionality first and foremost. Upgrade that GPU, and when you're ready to sexify your system, consider maybe upgrading the case. But I think the case is fine actually. Just make some minor changes like removing the stickers on your power supply. I think that's pretty much it. Like and tidy up your cable management. Does he have an SSD? Oh yeah, he does.
It is. It is listed.
You're good. You're good, man.
Thanks,
Not too bad.
Boo.
Thanks. Next we have Andrew, Ryzen 5 2200G, 16 gigs of Corsair Vengeance, Red Devil 5700 XT, 1 terabyte Samsung QVO SSD, and another SSD, and yeah. Okay, interesting build.
Steel Legend ASRock motherboard.
You have a Ryzen 5 2000 series chip with the RX 5700 XT, which I think is fine.
I'm curious if this build originally didn't have a graphics card. Because that's usually what I recommend a 2200G for. Get the 2200G, you can game on it, 1080, medium, low settings, depending on the game. You can get by with that for a little while, and then once you've saved up for a graphics card, drop a graphics card in there.
Right.
If that's the route you went, Andrew, then I applaud you. Good job. And I would say, at this point, upgrade your processor.
Yeah.
Because 2200G is a quad core, does not have, wait, 2200G and 2400G? Yeah, so the 2200G I think is quad core, no SMT on there, so
correct.
4 cores, 4 threads.
Right.
You've got a nice cooler on there with that Be Quiet.
You can definitely
that
afford a
Be
higher
Quiet
TDP.
cooler might have cost just as much as your processor, right? Right? How much is it? That's a Dark Rock
Really?
Pro or something like that, isn't it?
No, that's not the Pro. That's like the definitely one down.
Okay. Well, that's still a $60, $70 air cooler, right?
Yeah, right.
And the 2200G is $80, $90. So that seems a little offside.
It's close. Yeah.
Not talking aesthetics at all here, but I think you should update your processor. Drop a 6-core in there, drop a 3000 series in there. Your motherboard should support it with a BIOS update.
Yeah.
Other than that, really clean looking build. Great job on the cable management. I don't know. I guess you could maybe tie your PCI Express graphics cables together a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or just get some
I
extensions.
mean, that's really, really minor, but it's just because everything else is pretty clean.
One of my pet peeves is having the barcode on the fan, on the rear exhaust.
Right here?
Flipping that.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
remove the barcode there.
Remove that, or flip
Maybe
the fan.
consider rotating your fan on
That
your heatsink here. When you upgrade your processor, you'll need to pull that off anyway. So
Yeah.
rotate that so this little loop of cable is facing towards the motherboard, and that'll clean that up a little bit as well. That's all I got though.
Yep.
Again, real clean looking build. So great job on assembling everything.
Great card choice too. I love the Red Devil 5700 XT. They
solid.
did a fantastic job there.
right.
Moving on to our last candidate here, Chuckster,
Chuckster.
with a Ryzen 5 2600X Gigabyte B450M motherboard, 16 gigs of T-Force Delta RGB DDR4, an EVGA GeForce GTX 980, and he's got a 1TB hard drive with a 240 gig SSD, along with a Corsair Carbide Series 100R Silent Edition chassis.
Okay.
Pretty clean for being for being in that case. That case isn't like stupendous for cable management or anything, but you seem to have done a pretty good job. I feel like some of the cables at the bottom towards the power supply could be tidied up a little bit, routed further through those cable routing holes in the motherboard tray. But apart from that, it looks really clean. It's a very simple build. The case makes it even more simplified, so there's not much you can do here. But I feel like for your part selection, I don't know, GTX 980 and our Ryzen 5 2600X, I feel like if you needed more oomph for your gaming, then I would upgrade the GPU. GTX 980 is like, it's hard to believe how far we've come, because at the time 980 was like fucking killer. But now it's like, wow, that was like 4 years ago, right? So I think you would upgrade. I would personally upgrade my GPU first if all I cared about was gaming performance, which you should. And then potentially, if you wanted to pimp it out a bit more, getting a nice case that's maybe $100, maybe $70 to $100. Get a power supply shroud in there, some tempered glass, and upgrade your CPU cooler potentially. If you wanted to upgrade that CPU, you could very well so, because I mean, the Ryzen 5 2600X is still really good, but if you were upgrading, depending on the upgrade that you gave your GPU, you might also want to increase your IPC or clock speed as well, which you could potentially do with that B450 motherboard. I think you could upgrade to a much faster Ryzen 3000 series chip on that board with little issue, especially if you're not overclocking much. But
the 2600X is good.
It is still very good.
It's a good processor.
Still very good. Everything else looks pretty solid, man. I wouldn't really say much else.
Okay.
If you're going to keep the case, I'd remove that awful PSU sticker. And that is all.
Good call. All right.
That's going to conclude it for Pimp My PC, and thus my half of the show. So thank you guys very much for watching, but don't go anywhere, because we still have the after party to attend to.
Ooh.
And we'll be reading off your donations, comments, and Johnson shoutouts in that lovely piece. Also, your everyday tech. If you want to do timestamps, thank you very much in advance. We do appreciate all of your hard work, and that's gonna do it for my help. So we'll be right back.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.